Wow, this has been a crazy week. I'm Jordan. He's Will. We are Load the Box. I introduced us like we were like an '80s rock band. Like we are Load the Box. You know what I mean? Like we're Guns N' Roses. We're about to welcome you into the jungle. No, it's been free agency week, and most of the big names have been, signed somewhere. Officially now, as we recorded this on Thursday, so the ink is dried or drying, and we have a pretty good idea of what holes remain on the Vikings roster. And I think if you asked any scrub like me what the Vikings needed to do every offseason for the last decade, probably, it was we needed to acquire beef in the middle of both sides of the ball. We needed guard, center, defensive tackle. If we're gonna be in a 3-4, then I guess it's technically an end, but like it's a defensive tackle. Okay, let's keep it simple. And the Vikings have done that. The Vikings have went out and just signed absolute units of human beings. Will, your grade thought, I don't want to make you give a letter grade, but what were your overall thoughts, positive or negative, on this free agency for the Vikings?
I think it is really hard to look at this free agent window this week really negatively. I just think it's really hard to look at it and poke a ton of holes in it. Now, you can make a claim that it would have been better if they got a more proven safety to play alongside, you know, the very old Harrison Smith, and God love him, he's back for a 14th season, and that man, I say this every offseason, but he needs a statue. Um, Doing the team a favor again, restructuring his contract. He'll be back for at least one more season. But, you can make a claim that maybe they should have got somebody like Javon Holland. Maybe not. I think I'd probably be in the camp of it's fine that they didn't. Safety is a non-premier position, so rolling with somebody like Theo Jackson, who we should mention, Vikings have had him for a couple seasons. They claimed him off the practice squad from Tennessee a couple years back. And he is sort of going to assume the Cam Bynum role. Cam Bynum is gone. He's to Indianapolis, along with Daniel Jones, by the way,
Yeah, that
which is
was
a whole
crazy.
nother can of worms of discussing the Vikings backup quarterback plans. But there's a belief on with Theo Jackson stepping into that role, and you would imagine that most likely a guy like Harrison Smith is still going to see a lot of snaps, and the Josh Metellus Swiss Army knife, all of that. They should have the safety room covered, even if there's maybe question marks on what Theo Jackson can be in an extended role. But truthfully, Jordan, I don't see a ton of problems. Would it have been ideal if they got two guards? Sure. But we don't have never-ending money here, and although they only do have 4 draft picks in April's draft, there is still a possibility to go get another interior offensive lineman. So I don't know, Jordan. I don't see a ton of issues with it. I don't have a ton of holes to poke with it. They got some cornerbacks. They got 2 big guys on the interior of the D line. They brought back Aaron Jones. Now, one thing I will say, and then I want to ask your overall thoughts on it. I think the Aaron Jones signing, although it is not surprising, and I would say probably overall a positive move to bring back him. He was very valuable for the Vikings last season. Despite some kind of nagging injuries, he played in every game, had a career year in a lot of ways. He is over 30 now, and do you think you can really get 2 years of value out of Aaron Jones at $10 million a year? So that was maybe one piece where I would have liked to see them maybe cut a little bit more of a bargain, but for a guy that is familiar with the team, familiar with the system, had success in it last season, you can't argue with it too much. Now they just need to go draft a big thumper in the draft to pair with him. But I don't know.
My
That's kind of my overall thought.
the theme of this show is beef, and so my beef with the Aaron Jones signing, it's not really a beef, it's more of a condition. You've got to go get a running back, because like Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler, O'Connell does not trust Ty Chandler. He's made that very clear. Based on like Ty Chandler runs the ball, he looks good. He looks like the fastest guy on the team. It's crazy. But then you ask Ty Chandler to pass protect, and he falls apart. So I don't think Ty Chandler is I think he's an RB3, maybe like a practice squad, bounce around, maybe like a trade for a late, you know what I mean, like on cut day, one of those like weird trades that somebody just wants to retain his rights or whatever. Um, I want to see them go and draft a running back, and it doesn't even have to be the Thunder to Aaron Jones Lightning. It can just be a good running back. Like you can just go take your favorite running back in this draft. My problem with this free agency overall, and if I had to give them a letter grade as of right now, I would give them like a B plus to an A minus. I think they've done a very good job addressing the needs that were on the team. But if you're gonna nitpick it, you have to point out. Look, a lot of these guys are over 30. Like Jonathan Allen, I believe he is 30. Javon Hargrave is 32. Aaron Jones is 30, and so Harrison Smith is like 38 or 36. Like, he's real old. So you do have some aging components on this roster that are playing key positions for you. And so that's the problem with only having, foul draft picks coming up in April. I would like to see the replacements taken now to sit for a year, maybe two, and then they step up. But I also don't foresee us, nailing a fifth round defensive tackle selection. So I think, excuse me, as I said, I'm sick, playing injured here. I think that they're gonna have to make a decision come April. Do we value having a 5-6 year running back more than having like a 6-7 year defensive tackle? Like, there's going to be a lot. I think they're going to go best player available. I want them to go best player available come the draft time because I don't think there's a hole. Like, there's not well, we know the Vikings are going to do this because they really don't have a hole right now other than like left guard. But, we'll figure that out at some other time. I don't think they're going to have to reach for anything, but next year's draft is going to be very important. The Vikings, I think they've done a good job bringing in these free agents, and ideally, I'm not going to put pressure on the team, but this year, it would be really cool if we were the Commandos this year, where it's like, oh, their first year starting quarterback looks really good, and they go to the title game, and they lose, and it's clear that, they're still probably like a piece or two away, and blah, blah, blah. But then in 2 years after the next draft, like that's gonna be the Super Bowl win. Like that's the year where it's all the pressure is on the Vikings, and all these contracts kind of line up with that window. So that following draft is gonna be crucially important. Not to bury this year's draft, but we only have 4 draft picks, and Dustin Baker said it, I believe, after the draft this past season. Everyone expects the Vikings to trade down. If you put a gun to my head right now and said, what will the Vikings do in the first round? I say they probably won't make a pick. They'll probably, if they do, it won't be in the top 28. Like, they will trade back, acquire more draft picks, and then take more shots to fill not necessarily holes, but get guys in the pipeline for 3-4 years from now. And, overall, I think the Vikings are in for a really fun 2025 season. I'm kind of giddy for September to get here. I'm really looking forward to golf and spring and everything and summer, but man, I think it's going to be a fun season. This defense looks crazy, and JJ McCarthy's going to have a line. I mean, not like, oh, that's a pretty good, like he's going to have like a top 5 line in the league possibly. Like that's pretty crazy. That's pretty good if it all comes together. So I don't know. I'm excited.
And clearly, you are getting ready for spring and summer with your Vikings bucket hat for those
Yeah.
watching on YouTube here. I totally agree. I think there has to be a lot of optimism right now with the offensive line. And if we can even just take a step back and we can outline what they did to beef up the offensive line. There's that word again. First and foremost, the Vikings did not extend Sam Darnold. It was something that I think we all expected to happen. We didn't expect them to bring Darnold back. It was going to be a steep price tag. What he ended up getting was $100 million for 3 years, which is basically a 2-year contract with the team option at the end of it with Seattle. And, that, would have amounted to about $33 million a season. Funny enough, for the baseball fans out there, it's almost an identical contract to the first one that Carlos Correa signed with the Twins. back in 2022, but that's a digression that we can talk about off the air. So for when the Vikings didn't sign Darnold, that just freed up all this cap space. And, that's $30-ish million that they were able to then spend on. We can start with guys on the offensive line, Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, both from Indianapolis. So they played right next to each other for multiple seasons. Ryan Kelly is a 32-year-old center. He has had some injury history last season, missed about half the year. And then Will Fries, I believe, Jordan, he actually broke his tibia last season. Is that correct?
Yeah, he broke his tibia. I think he only played like a month.
Yeah, so he was out for a lot of the season. So, maybe that's a first initial sort of red flag. But something that we have noted and others have noted is this guy, or this front office, I should say, has been willing to sign guys that have an injury history. And it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be healthy just because they came here and the Vikings have a confidence in that. But the good thing about that is that you're maybe able to get a little bit of a discount. And so, Will Fries was highly sought after, but obviously the concern was the leg. So the Vikings get these two guys, though. They have been quite good. And you pair those, like Jordan's saying, with the bookends of Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, and you're cooking with gas. So obviously you have to figure out who's going to play left guard, whether that's Blake Brandel. It almost assures that Ed Ingram's going to get cut.
Yeah.
There's almost an assurance as well that Garrett Bradbury is going to get cut. Both moves would save the Vikings some cap space for this season if they did that before June 1st. So those are maybe some down the line as we get into spring off-season workouts, etc. But
to keep on the Will Fries thing for just a second, it was not only the leg that I think had teams kind of concerned to give him like a monster contract. It was also like the sample size that we've seen out of him, because he's a 6th or 7th round draft pick, so he spent his first full season riding the pine, so he didn't get like any snap. I mean, I think he did come in for a few snaps, but he never stouted. And then he played like 9 games, then he played a full season, and then he got injured, shortly into this past season. And so when he's been on the field, it's not that he's missed time because of injury. He missed time because he was a 7th round rookie and it took him a while to get onto the field. But that one full season he did play was like special. And those 9 games he played, I shouldn't say special. We're not talking about like this was a Hall of Fame lock of a player, but like he was a good offensive lineman. And so he's been a good offensive lineman when he's on the field, and he's only had one injury in his NFL career. So I do think, and I think the Vikings deal showed that there probably was, I don't want to say a bidding war, but I do think that, Seattle, I know, was interested. I think Carolina was interested. Don't hold me to that. But there were a few different teams, vying after this guy. And the Vikings gave him, it was a 5-year contract, wasn't it?
yeah. I mean, and he's a young enough guy where 5 years isn't too prohibitive. He's only 27 or turning 27 here soon. But I mean, and it makes sense. It makes sense that the Vikings and other teams would be wanting to go after him, because with how much teams are now placing on the importance of interior pass rushers, like the guys the Vikings got in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, having viable interior offensive linemen it's gone from being a nice to have to a must have.
Yeah.
Which is why, when the Chiefs guard Trey Smith, when he, re-signed on the franchise tag with Kansas City, why that sort of just shook up the whole right guard market, because this position has become so important. And the Vikings have seen that, truthfully, in the last 3 years, when you're trying to deploy undersized guys or unproven guys or guys like Blake Brandel, who are probably better just as a swing tackle or a fill-in. I mean, Blake Brandel has a lot of value because he can play everywhere, but is he a starting caliber guard, play him 17 games? Maybe not. And so going out and filling that void was almost like an absolute need.
Yeah. I think it shows
And
too. Sorry, not to cut you off, but I think it shows too. Quasi is growing and developing as a general manager because this is a very unQuasi move to go give big money to interior offensive linemen because the analytical side of football says that, safety not an analytically important position on the defense. Like it would rank dead last in terms of importance for defense. And then on the offensive side of the ball, yeah, the interior offensive line, those three guys, you can't have like terrible play, but if you can get competent 16, if you have the 16th or 17th best guy in the league at those spots, you're probably going to be okay, and you can make a push for the playoffs and go win a championship with it. But for Quasi to say, to see the way the league is going, well, let's be honest, if the Vikings want to make a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 seasons, they're going. They have to beat Philadelphia most likely. That's the team to beat right now. They're on top as we speak, and so. Not that we are building a team solely to compete with Philadelphia, but you look around the league, Philadelphia is setting a blueprint of, hey, we have 2 monstrous pass rushers on the inside. You look back to the Rams when they won their Super Bowl. They had Aaron Donald, one of the greatest pass rushers of all time, playing on the inside. And it is, like as you alluded to, that is becoming an advantage that defenses are finding, is that, offenses don't have good interior offensive line play, so that just drives up the value, and that's why I really can't overstate. Like I said, like this is like a really good offseason for the Vikings because we're gonna have to beat the the Philadelphia Eagles to get where we want to go, and we're gonna have to beat teams that have really good defensive tackles, and some of them now have 2 good D tackles and a good pass rusher on the outside, and so. I just love what they did. If you flip it to kind of change subjects, I don't want to like completely flip us, but to go to the other side of the ball, if you look again, the Vikings lost to 2 teams last year. Okay, we lost to Detroit and the Los Angeles Rams. So how did the Rams really neutralize the Vikings pass rush? And if you ask me, it was one, Matt Stafford knew where we were blitzing and when we were blitzing, and he was a good quarterback and called good protections. But 2, I think they took a very make Harrison Phillips, Jonathan Bullard, whoever it is that's playing on the inside, make one of those guys win in the pass rush. We're going to wide pockets. We are going to make Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner, whoever it is that's rushing, wide over protective of the edges, make them win inside, and the Vikings defensively, I think, are now going to be able to go and win inside because of the additions of Jonathan Allen. Yes, I know he's 30 and his play will start to decline, but he's still a better pass rusher than Jonathan Bullard. And I like Jonathan Bullard, but Javon Hargrave's still a better pass rusher than Harrison Phillips. Like they're just better at it. So I wanted to shift to that side of the ball and give some love over there too.
Oh, it's so important. And it's the old cliche that football games are won in the trenches. And we've been banging on that table for a while, and Vikings fans have always been banging on that table because, the Vikings seem to be really good at building from the outside, wide receivers, defensive backs, not necessarily corners, but safeties and, edge rushers and even tackles. But building from the ball out has always been a challenge for the Vikings, no matter who the general manager and coach are. And now finally, like you said, give credit to what Quasi's doing because he understood the assignment. And getting 2 guys in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, who we should note that Hargrave did miss most of last season with an injury. He was with the 49ers, but got injured, and he's getting a little older. He's 32. So you can't expect those guys to, be racking up anything like double-digit sacks or anything like that. But both of them provide a level of pass rush on the interior that by themselves will be able to pair well with the guys on the outside that the Vikings have. We now no longer have to just rely on Dallas Turner and Grenard and Van Ginkel to be able to provide pressure because there is going to be a semblance of that from the inside. And so you take that Rams playoff game, for example, like you're saying, Jordan, Vikings would have been able to exploit that approach much better if they had somebody like Jonathan Allen rushing from the inside.
Yes.
Because he can cause problems from the inside. I mean, he has long been sort of a part of that interior, Williams Wall East in Washington with who was it? Daron Payne, the other massive human that the Commanders employed for a while. They had two defensive tackles that were just menaces. Anyway, the Vikings now, although it might be a little bit older, have that. And then you will still get value, and you might even get more value now from guys like Jonathan Bullard and Harrison Phillips, because you'll have guys that are next to them on the line that can rush the passer and take pressure off of them. And so guys like Harrison Phillips might have more of an ability to make plays because of the presence of those guys next to him. So this was huge. It was needed. I mean, the Vikings defense was already good last year, and I think it just got better. We believe in our, linebacking crew. We believe in our outside linebackers. We can talk a little bit about the cornerbacks, because I think the cornerbacks are interesting. What did you think, Jordan, about the two free agent signings, Byron Murphy Jr. coming back on a 3-year, $66 million deal, and then a 2-year deal for Isaiah Rodgers from Philly?
Isaiah Rodgers is interesting because look, I'm a simple man. Okay, I really am. I like man coverage. I like blitzing 7, at least 6. Like I think Isaiah Rodgers in his limited snaps has been very sticky in man coverage. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm not an Isaiah Rodgers expert. Okay, I'm not a secondary expo. There's a good chance that if you go watch Isaiah Rodgers' film, he's just really good at holding and getting away with it because he's holding second or third string wide receivers, and you're more likely to get away with a hold on Andre Yoshivas than you are on Jamar Chase. But it excites me. I said all offseason, we haven't done a ton of shows this offseason, but I've been pretty vocal in my group on X, on the show that we did do, which sorry that it didn't make its way to YouTube, but you can listen to the podcast version of it wherever you find your podcasts. I've been pretty vocal that I thought it would be foolish to go into 2025 with Mekhi Blackmon penciled in as a starter. I just didn't think that was a good idea. He was already an okay starter, kind of fringe, and then he blew his knee out, and so to think that he would come back, I'm repeating myself here, but I love this take, so I'm going to say it 100,000 times, to think that he would come back better off of a knee injury, like Adrian Peterson somehow, like he would get better off of the ACL tear, was asinine and foolish to me. So bringing in Isaiah Rodgers to compete for that second corner spot, Byron Murphy's still going to be on the outside. We could still go find ourselves drafting a guy or two. And there's always the option for, I don't know what the cornerback market looks like right now, but I could see we know Kwesi loves first round busts. Let's just call it what it is. Kwesi loves busts, and he loves bringing a bust in to see if he has anything. So I could see a guy like Jeff Okudah, who hasn't been great, originally with the Lions, and I believe he's with Atlanta now. Is that correct?
Well, he was. I think they cut him a while back.
And so it's that's a name that I've seen floated around. This isn't even a right now decision. This is look, we were worried about the Vikings secondary, and then they signed Stephon Gilmore 3 weeks before the regular season last year. And we were still worried about their secondary because he was really old, and we were are we sure this is a smart idea? But I like the Vikings secondary. I think that they're going to play a lot of man. I think that also, not to get too into the cliche, but man, the pass rush, you don't need that good of a secondary with the pass rush that I foresee the Vikings having. I mean, you're going to be, year 2 Dallas Turner probably getting into the mix more and more. Van Ginkel, I think him and Van Ginkel will kind of split, but Van Ginkel's good for a splash or two a game. Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave in the middle, good for a splash or two a game, and then almost called him Dre Greenlaw, Jonathan Grenard. He's the guy, right? He's the stud that we have now, and so having him coming around the edge, it's gonna be easier to play in the secondary for Minnesota, I think, with the front seven that the Vikings have built here. I'm really looking forward to it. What did you think of Isaiah Rodgers? Because that was like the first move the Vikings made, and it left a lot of people being like, "Uh-oh," like a lot of people that was worrisome that he was the first name off the board.
I think it's a good depth signing. I think I was like, honestly, I missed it. It was one of those things where I was, tracking what the Vikings were doing, and one of my buddies was like, "Oh yeah, do you see they signed Isaiah Rodgers?" And I was like, "Who?" um, because I was just focused on, the bigger things. I just like had missed it when I was, reviewing what was going on. I think that it was important. I think it surprised me in a positive way because, like you, I was kind of anticipating, okay, once they did the Byron Murphy thing, they're just going to rely on depth pieces or maybe a late camp signing if there's somebody that's injured or whatever. Maybe a draft pick. So I think having that, I think, is probably good. And now Isaiah Rodgers is a veteran, but he's not old. He's 27, but he's been in the league for a while. He did miss a whole season, 2023, because he got suspended for gambling. Him and Jamison Williams are friends. So whether or not they're actually friends, I don't know. I'm just, it might have been on the same fantasy league. Who knows? But he then played last year with the Eagles in a limited fashion, sort of as a backup. And what I have heard is that, he played well. And so I think having someone who is a veteran to come in and be an actual let's just be honest here too, Jordan. I think the ideal is that guys like Dwight McGlothern and Mekhi Blackman take his spot.
Yeah.
I think that would be ideal if those guys, younger guys, institutional guys, take Isaiah Rodgers' spot, and then Rodgers can be what he was in Philly, a backup ancillary piece that can fill in when needed. Kind of like what Philly had. They had Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, who were two rookies that played outstanding and helped them win a Super Bowl. Isaiah Rodgers, was sort of the fourth cornerback on the team behind those two guys and Darius Slay. So ideally, I think that's what we would like to see. But at least you now have established a floor. You've established decent play. He's not going to be, you know what you're getting. He's going to be a decent cover corner. I think, like you said, pretty good in man-to-man coverage. So I liked it. I think what I'm curious hearing about from you is what did you think about the Byron Murphy extension? Like, what was your first overall reaction, and then kind of where are you at right now with it?
We should have extended him, and I'm glad that we did. I think that he goes out there, he has like 8 picks. The coaching staff is raving about how, yeah, he is really talented, but I'm going to paraphrase what I took from the quote. Okay, they basically said, look, this guy didn't really know how to study film and how to put in, like, how to prepare himself the right way for Sundays. And we showed him how to do it. And he said, wow, that's crazy. And now he does it. And he's coming up with almost double digit interceptions. He leads counters and picks. And he's one of the most targeted counters in the league. Yeah, he's aggressive. He gave up some big-ish plays, but not at one point last season did I watch the Vikings defense and think there were a couple points where I watched the interior defensive line and I thought, I don't know that this is a Super Bowl caliber defense, but the secondary was good enough, the edge rushers were good enough, and the linebackers were good enough. So I was all about bringing him back, and I think the deal he got was well deserved, and I was excited that they brought him back. You have better friends than I do, by the way. I was at work when they signed Isaiah Rodgers, and so one of my work friends looked at me and he said, "Did you see the Vikings just signed Rodgers?" And I was like, no, like I would have gotten that notification, like no way. And he was like, I swear, man, they just signed Rodgers. And I was like, no. So I looked it up. And I just typed in like Vikings free agency, and it was Vikings sign Isaiah Rodgers, and I've had some choice wilds for that individual. But he's a Steelers fan, so he actually might be getting Aaron Rodgers here in the next couple of days. So, well,
if we're gonna, just be honest here, I hope that he gets Aaron Rodgers in the next couple days because I don't want Aaron Rodgers on my football team.
Yeah, I don't
That
either.
is that does lead us into the one thing that I think is sort of a clear remaining need from free agency is another quarterback. I think honestly, Jordan, I think they have one quarterback under contract, and I think it's JJ McCarthy because Daniel Jones is gone. Nick Mullins went to Jacksonville along with Grant Udinski and Johnny Munt. The Jags are rebuilding their entire infrastructure around the Vikings' third best offensive weapons and third best quarterback, third best offensive mind, and their third best tight end. And then also, who else is gone? Well, Brett Rippon is a free agent. He's not probably someone they're going to be clamoring for. And then obviously Sam Darnold is gone. So of the 5 quarterbacks the Vikings had in-house last year, only J.J. McCarthy remains. So that's obvious. They need to get a couple more bodies there at least. We've heard rumblings. We've heard the whole speculation by medium, like credentialed, like respected media members that there's at least conversations going on about Aaron Rodgers. So that's like a potential. I think, we could quickly evolve into that conversation if we wanted to. I think we're going to stay away from it. But the other things that, I think need to be noted with the backup quarterback situation, assuming that McCarthy is going to start, which I think we all believe and hope he does, is who are they going to be looking for? Because Marcus Mariota's off the market. Kirk Cousins, probably not an option if you wanted to have him come in and back up. Joe Flacco is really old. Do you want to have him be the backup quarterback? Jameis Winston's floating around out there somewhere. Do you want to take that gamble? Cooper Rush could be a potential option for backup quarterback. So there's a lot of ideas, and I don't know if you've given much thought into who specifically you'd like to see the Vikings get, but I think sort of as an overall baseline, my take is get somebody who's at least somewhat veteran, who's been around the block, who can be a good mentor, because this is JJ McCarthy's team, and I don't think 2025 needs to be the go for the Super Bowl year. I think 2025 needs to be the let's just get JJ McCarthy as many good reps as possible. They've already built a good infrastructure around him. And let's get somebody in the quarterback room who can mentor him along with his coaches. So I don't know if you've given thought to specific names, but that's sort of where my mind is at this point.
Yeah, I've definitely given thought to specific names. And I think that, look, I have 2 favorites. One is Joe Flacco, because he is the ultimate, like, if JJ McCarthy, God forbid, gets injured, I think Joe Flacco comes in, he makes you competitive-ish in O'Connell's scheme, especially with a good O-line, hopefully an improved run game, like that. You know what I mean? Like, and you ride a good defense, and you can have another season like this one where, not quite to this win level, but another like wild card round loss, road game in the wild card round, and be competitive and have some fun. The other one is Case Keenum. Mm-hmm. He's like 37. He's just out there drifting along. He's fun. We all love him. He's owned it. Okay, like he gave us that miracle. The least we could do is 8 years later give him a second contract with the Vikings, like, and be like, you know what, we're under new management, but we're gonna bring you back in. You're gonna be the backup. And then I think it is intriguing. If I would love to. This is what the perfect world. Jordan's the GM. Bring in Case Keenum, hopefully cheap. Obviously, you're not gonna give big money to your backup quarterback. So you bring in Keenum, hopefully pretty cheap, and then I'd love to see them get Trey Lance as the third string. And if McCarthy went down for a month, it's Keenum's team for a month. If McCarthy went down for the year, we're gonna see some Trey Lance at some point, and we're gonna roll those dice and see what Trey Lance can do. When he has Jefferson and a good O-line and all those things that we've talked about. So that's my ideal situation. To go official on the record, just that way when it happens and we win the Super Bowl, I can look like a dummy. I don't want Aaron Rodgers. I think he is... I didn't want Cousins off the Achilles. I wanted him back very cheap, but like once I you started hearing the numbers going out there, I was like, that's too expensive for a 36-year-old coming off of an Achilles tear. That's a really bad injury. Well, a 31-year-old who also was coming off an Achilles tear, he looked bad. Like, he just looked bad. You watch the mechanics breakdown of Rajos, and I'm not gonna do a whole bit on it, but his mechanics were all jacked up. He's not planting the same way. I don't think he's going to be winning a Super Bowl. I think he got a Super Bowl, 15 years ago, however long it's been, and he's done now. Like, and I would love that. I would love for it to come out in 3 months. Rodgers goes unsigned, and it was just his agent trying to drum up speculation. Like, I heard the Giants might want him, and the Giants were like, "No, we do not. Like, we are going to draft, whoever, and ride it out." Mason Rudolph's a free agent. I would be interested in some Mason Rudolph action.
He's going back to Pittsburgh.
Oh, he is going back to Pittsburgh. I didn't see that Mason Rudolph was going back to Pittsburgh.
I think that happened today. And we are recording this on Thursday, March 13th.
Womp womp, I say. Because I actually enjoy watching, like, Mason Rudolph is... Yeah, Mason Rudolph's, like, the definition of, like, he's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I watched him in Pittsburgh get him above 500 a couple times. Like, so he would have been a good option for the Vikings. But, yeah, man, I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. I'm in the same state of mind I was last season before the Sam Darnold magic carpet ride happened. If J.J. McCarthy does not play this season, something has went terribly wrong, and it's going to be an awful season. And I will post the same things on my Instagram account of J.J. McCarthy's meniscus playing Go Rest High on That Mountain by Vince Gill. Classic funeral song, at least down here. I don't know if that's like a Minnesota thing too. But, I'll play Purple Rain. I'll be very distraught. But I think McCarthy's going to be coming back, and I the football gods have to let us have this one, right? They not even make him good. Just let us see him. Like,
play.
Like, your parents bought you Guitar Hero. You saw the Guitar Hero guitar hidden in the closet. And it's just like, it's Christmas morning. Where's it at, guys? You know what I mean? Like, I know that Guitar Hero is in this house. Can I try it? Like, I might hate the songs that are on it, but I at least want to play it, So, it is time for JJ, for us to get the JJ McCarthy experience. I had another, like, bit that I wanted to get into before we got into the Aaron Rodgers thing, and I remember what it is. Would you trade Jordan Addison and maybe some picks for Sauce Gardner? I'd do it in a heartbeat. I wouldn't think twice about it. Give me Sauce Gardner and Byron Murphy Jr. as my starting corners. I don't care. Go sign Cooper Kupp, draft. Maybe I'm speaking too cocky here. The Vikings are good at drafting wide receivers, guys. Maybe we should just let Addison go. He's going to be suspended for a month minimum. Like, let's do it. Come on. There's steam. Let's push it along. Like, would you do that?
I think it's very intriguing. Now, Sauce Gardner comes with his own whole bunch of baggage and, heart issues and all those sorts of things, but at least he's not in legal trouble. And the other thing, too, with Jordan Addison, not even related to his off-the-field stuff, but eventually he's going to want to get paid. And you're not going to pay two wide receivers big money. The Bengals are learning that the hard way, and they're trying to pay everybody, and it's just not going to work. And they're just pissing everybody off in the meantime.
Yeah.
So eventually you're going to have to part ways with Jordan Addison. So trading him when he is... you'd be selling high. Jordan Addison has been awesome for 2 years, and he's a number one wide receiving talent. If he didn't play behind Justin Jefferson, he could very easily be a number one wide receiver. So, I think it's very intriguing. Whether the Vikings would actually do it, I don't know, because I think
it's
when you
splashy.
have a guy like J.J. McCarthy coming in, you'd want to have as many weapons as you can for him to just, dish the ball to. But I think if Kwesi got a call from whoever the Jets general manager is these days, might be a good idea.
By the way, you have a very reliable source for Jordan Addison is going to want to get paid here pretty soon. The source is Jordan Addison said the second he got drafted, let's get paid. So this guy his motives are clear as to why he plays football. He didn't say like, I'm so excited to play for such a historic organization. No, he right out of the gate in a bright pink suit and sunglasses and diamonds everywhere said, "Let's get paid," as if the suit that he wore to the draft didn't already cost more than my house. But that's another issue that I guess we can cross another time. Yeah, man, I think that's intriguing. I have to point out look, if we're going to point out the speculation that Lajos might come to the Vikings, we also have to point out there's also speculation Sauce Gardner might come to the Vikings. And look, he went to UC. I mean, yeah, my wife, there's a connection. He holds a special place in my heart. He's probably, of all the people that have played at UC, my favorite that has like had a career in the NFL. Now, the other two are the Kelsey brothers, and one played in Philly, and one is Travis. So he doesn't have a lot of competition now, but I guess Desmond Ritter. But yeah, man, I'm good to take it to final thoughts and hop on out of here if you are. Do you want me to get my final thoughts off real quick?
Go for it.
Awesome. Final thoughts. It is draft season, and I don't know what to do with myself because usually draft season I get really excited because I start looking at quarterbacks. I said this on the last podcast. I can't really look at quarterbacks. I don't think we're taking a quarterback like at all. So there are some names. I know I've pounded the table for the D tackle out of Michigan, not Mason Graham, but the other one. There's a few different guys. I'm kind of going into the draft. I don't want to say blind, but not as like, ooh, this guy went hit. I'm not as in tune with it as I usually would be. But as I said earlier, I'm really excited for September. I don't know why that came off funny. Enjoy spring. Baseball season starts here in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today is Reds opening day, I believe, which is always fun for us down here in Cincinnati. Hockey is in full swing. I don't know if any of our listeners are Wild fans. I'm a Jackets fan myself, and I got to watch us beat the brakes off of Detroit in the shoe, which was cool. I'm not even a Buckeye fan, but that was still like really cool experience. So going to a Jackets game here in a couple weeks, and really excited about that. So I know we're all clamoring for football, and this was a nice tease of what's to come, but let's enjoy the weather. It's like 80 degrees outside right now. I'm sick, so I'm kind of sad that it's 80 because I would have loved to have went to the driving range today or tomorrow, but I don't think my body's gonna let me do that kind of stuff. But yeah, man, I'm so looking forward to it not being 12 degrees outside anymore. But I bet here in 3 months I'll be saying I want it to be 12 in football. So I'm a tough man to please. Follow the show at LTB Vikings. The YouTube is back after a hiatus because of reasons that I won't get into on the show, but I'm not thrilled with them. But I don't have the pool for that to mean anything. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube because that is back in full swing and shouldn't have any issues coming, down the pipe. Find us wherever you get your podcast. Follow Will at Will Bad Lose and check out the Bad Loser blog. I've been Jordan and he's been Will. I almost just closed the show without giving him his final thoughts. You do your final thoughts and then you close the show. I don't know why. I'm sick. Flu game. So hasta la pasta.
Like Jordan said, it's time to start dreaming on the draft. And there's going to all be the mock drafts are going to get even spicier now because teams' needs are being filled and the draft positions and the draft picks are going to have to be, we're going to have a better idea of who isn't going to be needed to be picked for the Vikings and other teams to fill their holes. Me personally, I think, you mentioned the shoe, Columbus, the Buckeyes. I'm dreaming on Travion Henderson. I know that it's probably a dream. I know that the Vikings might have more pressing needs, but I do think that running back is an important need. You might have to stick and pick at 24 if you want him, which could reduce the ability to trade back and get multiple picks. But if you want to pair somebody with Aaron Jones, honestly, let's just one of the Ohio State guys. It doesn't have to be Travion Henderson. I think I'd like him, but Judkins, the other guy who had about 8 touchdowns in the national championship game, one of those two guys would be utterly fantastic. The other thing that, like I said, will need to happen between now and the draft, most likely, hopefully, let's just be honest, this week, next week, is let's fill those quarterback spots. Give JJ some backup. Because before you know it, April's going to be here and off-season workouts are going to start, and it's going to be go time on all this stuff. So, not entirely sure on the upcoming schedule for Jordan and I. Probably in a couple weeks we'll be back unless there's something emergent that happens. If somebody, whose name shall not be mentioned on these airwaves anymore gets signed, then maybe we need to do a little bit of an emergency show. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about future quarterbacks. We'll talk about the draft. We have some time here, but it's still go time. There's still a lot to happen in this offseason, and we'll have you covered. We'll talk soon. Skol, y'all.